Don't show up to the launch dinner tonight, Kira said, not even looking up from her phone. Mason doesn't like you hovering. Deal with it. I smiled, told her, sure, and then I dealt with it in the one way she never expected, by quietly removing myself from her life, her apartment, and the business she'd been bragging about like it was hers. For context, I'm Evan, 29, and I work as a product operations manager for a mid-sized SaaS company in Austin, Texas. I'm the guy who turns chaos into systems. Contracts, timelines, budgets, vendors, all the unsexy stuff that keeps things from collapsing. I've always been steady, not flashy, and Kira used to say that's what she loved about me. You make me feel safe. Back then, we were the annoying couple everyone secretly envied. Sunday brunch, gym dates, inside jokes, and the kind of affection that made strangers smile. We met at a friend's backyard get-together 2 years ago. She was magnetic, 27, social, ambitious, always talking about her next big idea. I was the opposite, quiet, observant, the guy refilling ice and making sure nobody burned the burgers. Somehow, she gravitated toward me anyway. She liked that I didn't compete for attention. I liked that she had enough energy for both of us. A year in, she moved into my place, and when I proposed 6 months later, she cried so hard, my shirt got soaked. She said yes before I could even finish the sentence. The shift didn't happen overnight. It was a slow leak. Kira started chasing bigger circles, the kind that come with networking events, founder meetups, and people who talk about vibes like it's a business plan. She got obsessed with appearances. The perfect photos, the perfect parties, the perfect friends. Meanwhile, I was working longer hours because my company had a rough quarter and half. My team got reassigned. I'd come home drained, and she'd be lit up, freshly dressed, heading out. Our conversations turned into logistics. I'll be late. Don't wait up. Can you feed the dog? Then she met Mason. She introduced him like he was a harmless accessory. He's just a friend from the entrepreneur scene. Mason was early 30s, always dressed like he was stepping onto a stage, always smiling like he knew something you didn't. He had that polished confidence that makes people lean in, and Kira leaned in the hardest. He'd comment on her posts within seconds. He'd text her during dinner. And the strangest part? She didn't even try to hide it. She framed it like I was the one being weird for noticing. At first, I told myself not to overreact. I didn't want to be that guy, the insecure fiancé who can't handle his partner having friends. But Mason wasn't just a friend, he was always there. At her work dinners. At weekend brunches I wasn't invited to. In her DMs at midnight. And slowly, my role in Kira's life shifted. I stopped being the person she talked to and became the person she updated. Like a calendar reminder, necessary but easy to ignore. The house changed too. We stopped sharing a bedroom regularly. She said she needed space to reset her energy. I slept on the couch more times than I could count, staring at the ceiling while she giggled quietly on the balcony, phone pressed to her ear. We ate separately, watched different shows, lived parallel lives under the same roof. At some point, I realized we weren't engaged partners anymore. We were roommates who happened to share a past. The brutal moment came on a Thursday night. I'd come home late after putting out a production fire at work. I found her dressed up, heels on, purse ready. I asked where she was going. She sighed, annoyed, like I'd interrupted something important. That's when she said it. I'm done being your fiancé. I need excitement, not responsibility. Deal with it. No yelling, no tears, just cold certainty, like she'd rehearsed it. I didn't argue. I didn't raise my voice. I just nodded and said, okay. That seemed to confuse her. She hesitated, like she was waiting for me to beg or promise to change. Instead, I went into the bedroom, grabbed a backpack, and packed the essentials: laptop, documents, clothes, charger. I left the ring on the nightstand. I slept at a hotel that night and booked an extra week before I even checked out. While she was busy posting stories from rooftop bars and startup mixers, I was quietly getting organized. I called a lawyer, then an accountant. Then I pulled up the digital folder I hadn't looked at in over a year, the one labeled LLC, Formation and Agreements. Kira had been so focused on the spotlight that she completely forgot who built the stage. Here's the part Kira never paid attention to. A year earlier, when she decided to build something of her own, I helped her set up a small marketing consultancy. I handled the paperwork, the filings, the banking, all the boring invisible work she didn't care about. On paper, it was her brand. Legally, though, the structure was different. I was listed as the managing partner because my credit and professional background were needed to secure the initial contracts. She signed everything without reading past the bold headers. At first, I wasn't even looking for revenge. I just wanted clarity. That's when I started noticing things I'd ignored before. Late-night emails popping up on our shared tablet. Calendar invites labeled strategy session that lined up perfectly with Mason's availability. Expense reports charged to the business for dinners that looked suspiciously romantic. I forwarded everything to myself and stopped reacting emotionally. This wasn't heartbreak anymore. It was documentation. One night, while backing up files from our shared cloud drive, I found a folder she must have forgotten existed. Screenshots, messages, photos, long voice notes sent to Mason complaining about me, calling me safe, predictable, not the man she wanted anymore. There were jokes about me paying bills while she built her future. Reading it hurt, but it also snapped something into focus. I wasn't losing anything valuable. I was finally seeing it clearly. The legal leverage was simple but devastating. The partnership agreement included a morals and conduct clause, something my lawyer had insisted on after seeing similar businesses implode due to internal drama. Any behavior that risked the company's reputation or finances gave the managing partner full authority to dissolve contracts and reclaim assets. Publicly mixing business funds with a romantic relationship? That qualified. Easily. So I waited. I didn't confront her. I didn't tip her off. I let her keep thinking I was gone, broken, irrelevant. Then, on a Monday morning, while she was preparing for a big client presentation downtown, one she'd bragged about for weeks, my lawyer filed the paperwork. By noon, the company accounts were frozen, the contracts reassigned, and the clients notified that operations were being restructured under my sole control. The fallout was immediate. Kira found out the hard way. Standing in a glass conference room, laptop open, client waiting, when her card declined and her access vanished mid-login. She called me 6 times in 10 minutes. I didn't answer. By the time she reached my lawyer, the explanation was already sitting neatly in her inbox, written in calm, professional language. No insults, no drama, just facts. She showed up at the house that evening like a storm, eyes red, voice shaking between rage and panic. Mason was conspicuously absent. She accused me of betrayal, sabotage, emotional abuse, every buzzword she'd learned in her echo chamber. I let her talk. When she finally ran out of steam, I calmly explained that the business wasn't hers anymore. Legally, it never really was. The silence that followed was almost peaceful. That's when the gaslighting started. She cried, apologized, claimed Mason was just a mistake. Said she'd been confused, pressured, lost. She reached for my hand like muscle memory would save her. I stepped back. I told her this wasn't punishment, it was consequence. And for the first time, she realized she wasn't negotiating from a position of power anymore. A week later, the story spread. Not mine, hers. Former clients stopped responding. Industry friends distanced themselves. Mason disappeared completely once the money dried up. Turns out, excitement has a short shelf life when the bills come due. I heard through mutual contacts that she tried to frame me as controlling and vindictive, but the contracts told a cleaner story than her emotions ever could. Meanwhile, I focused on rebuilding. I moved into a smaller apartment closer to work, started sleeping through the night again, took on new clients. The stress I'd been carrying for months evaporated faster than I expected. Losing her didn't feel like losing a future. It felt like getting my life back. About a month later, something unexpected happened. I met Rachel. Not on an app, not at a bar, but in a painfully unglamorous way, a shared co-working space I'd started using to get out of my apartment during the day. She was quiet, focused, always there before me, and gone after. One afternoon, we bonded over a broken printer and bad coffee. She mentioned, almost casually, that she'd finalized her divorce 6 months earlier, after discovering her husband had been living a double life. No bitterness, just honesty. What stood out about Rachel wasn't chemistry at first, it was peace. She didn't compete for attention, she didn't talk in buzzwords, she listened. We started taking lunch breaks together, then longer conversations after work. She never asked about Kira until I brought it up myself. When I did, she didn't tell me how to feel. She just said, "That sounds exhausting. I'm glad you're out." It was the most validating thing anyone had said to me in a long time. Around that same time, Kira's situation kept unraveling. The apartment we'd shared was too expensive on her own. She moved out within 2 months. I heard she tried freelancing independently, but struggled without the back-end structure I'd handled. Missed deadlines, confused invoicing, burned bridges. The same people who once hyped her up online quietly stopped engaging. The crowd that cheered for her freedom vanished when it stopped being fun. She tried reaching out again, longer messages this time, admitting she'd made mistakes, saying she finally understood what stability meant, that she missed us. I didn't reply. Not out of spite, but because there was nothing left to say. I had already closed that chapter, and reopening it would only pull me backward. Some doors don't need slamming, they just need locking. Rachel and I took things slow. No labels, no pressure, just consistency. Movie nights, morning walks, honest conversations. For the first time in years, I wasn't trying to earn affection or compete with a fantasy version of myself. I was simply being chosen, calmly, intentionally, and that felt better than any dramatic reconciliation ever could. The final confrontation happened by accident. I ran into Kira at a grocery store near my old place. She looked thinner, tired, like someone who hadn't slept well in weeks. When our eyes met, I saw the hesitation, that moment where pride wrestles with desperation. She followed me down an aisle and quietly said my name like it still belonged to her. She apologized again, this time without anger, without accusations. She admitted Mason had vanished the moment things got hard, that the excitement she chased burned fast and left nothing behind. She said she'd been influenced, that she lost herself, that she finally understood what she'd thrown away. I listened. I didn't interrupt. And when she finished, I told her the truth she didn't want to hear. I said, "You didn't lose yourself. You chose yourself, just not wisely." I reminded her that when she told me to deal with it, she'd already made her decision. I had simply respected it. Her eyes filled with tears, but I didn't feel satisfaction. I felt closure. Some endings don't need fireworks, they just need honesty. After that, she faded from my life completely. No more messages, no more second-hand updates. I heard later that she'd moved back in with a friend, took a short-term contract job, and stopped talking about entrepreneurship altogether. The identity she'd built collapsed under its own weight. And I realized something important. Consequences don't need cruelty to be effective. My life, on the other hand, kept expanding. Work stabilized. Clients trusted me. My days felt lighter. Rachel and I eventually made things official, not with grand gestures, but with consistency. Trust rebuilt slowly, the right way. We supported each other without trying to compete, impress, or dominate. It felt adult, healthy, real. One night, sitting on my balcony, I thought about how close I'd come to apologizing for things that weren't my fault. How easy it would have been to stay, to shrink, to accept being treated like background noise in my own relationship. Walking away wasn't dramatic. It was quiet. But it changed everything. People love to talk about revenge like it has to be loud or cruel. It doesn't. Sometimes revenge is just refusing to be disrespected again. Sometimes it's letting contracts, time, and reality do the work for you. I didn't destroy her life. I simply stopped holding it together for her. Looking back, I'm grateful she said what she said that night. "I'm done being your fiancé. Deal with it." Because those words freed me. They gave me permission to stop trying to save something that no longer wanted saving. I dealt with it by choosing dignity over drama, structure over chaos, and peace over ego. And that choice gave me a better partner, a better life, and a future that doesn't require me to beg for a seat at the table. So yeah, they told me to deal with it, and I did. Just not the way they expected. If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more like it, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and stick around. There are plenty more stories where that came from.